The 1980s, an era of neon, cassette tapes, and a whole different approach to growing up. Back then, schools were worlds of their own, with rules, routines, and daily sights that would shock today's parents, teachers, and students. From the paddle in the principal's office to sugary soda on every corner, many of these once everyday school habits are now banned, frowned upon, or just unthinkable. So, let's jump back in time and count down 30 things you could do at school in the 80s. Every one of them totally normal then, but are banned now. 1. Corporal punishment in schools. Discipline in the 1980s wasn't just about a stern talk. In countless classrooms, getting sent to the principal's office meant facing the paddle, sometimes displayed on the wall as a warning. Teachers had the authority to use rulers, belts, or their own hands to correct bad behavior. It wasn't just legal, many parents expected it and would deliver a second round at home if you'd been caught acting up. Today, corporal punishment is banned in nearly every school district. Modern education focuses on positive reinforcement, counseling, and emotional support, not physical pain. Times have truly changed, from fear and bruises to encouragement and understanding. 2. Soda and junk food everywhere. Forget water bottles and healthy snacks. In the 80s, soda machines were as common as lockers, and vending machines dished out candy, chips, and chocolate bars by the armful. Teachers used sweets as bribes, classroom parties meant mountains of cupcakes and cookies, and even the cafeteria served pizza, tater tots, and mystery meat. No nutrition guidelines in sight. These days, most schools have strict rules about sugary drinks and junk food. Soda machines have been replaced by water fountains, and wellness is a top priority. But if you went to school in the 80s, junk food was everywhere, fueling sugar highs and unforgettable lunchroom memories. 3. Walking home alone, no questions asked. Parent pickup lines? Not in the 80s. Kids as young as 6 walked home alone, even in the city, with no need for permission slips or adult escorts. Many were latchkey kids, letting themselves in after school to an empty house with a snack and a cartoon. Parents just expected you to show up for dinner. No GPS, no check-ins, just street smarts and neighborhood friends. Today, schools require sign-out procedures and ID checks, and many states have laws against leaving young kids unsupervised. But in the 80s, walking home solo wasn't just normal, it was part of growing up. 4. Failing a grade was common. Participation trophies and social promotion didn't exist in the 1980s. If you failed your classes, you repeated the grade. Simple as that. Teachers were brutally honest. Report cards were filled with red marks, and no one tried to soften the blow. Parents didn't rush to the principal to argue. They told you to study harder. Today, social promotion is much more common, and most schools emphasize keeping kids with their age group. The idea of flunking a grade now feels almost traumatic, but for 80s kids, it was a real risk and a motivator to try harder next time. 5. Principals and teachers smoking at school. Back then, smoking wasn't just tolerated, it was everywhere. Teachers lit up in the lounge, principals smoked in their offices, and even some high school seniors had designated smoking areas on campus. Cigarette vending machines sat just outside school property. The dangers of secondhand smoke were only starting to be understood, and nobody worried about health codes. Now, of course, smoking is banned on all school property, indoors and out. Today's students can't imagine teachers puffing away between classes, but in the 1980s, it was as ordinary as recess. 6. Strict, gendered dress codes. Forget ripped jeans or hoodies. School dress codes in the 80s were strict, and especially tough on girls. Skirts had to be below the knee. Spaghetti straps were unheard of. And in some places, girls couldn't wear pants at all. Boys with long hair were sent home, and dress code violation meant detention, or being forced to wear something from the lost and found bin. Dress codes today are much more relaxed and less gendered, with ongoing debates about fairness and self-expression. But for 80s students, what you wore was tightly controlled, and there was no arguing with the rules. 7. Dodgeball with real rubber balls. Gym class in the 1980s was not for the faint of heart. Dodgeball wasn't played with soft foam. It was full throttle with hard red rubber balls that left welts and bruises. If you got hit in the face, too bad. There were no safe zones, no helmets, and no mercy. Gym teachers often encouraged the chaos, and being the last one standing meant serious bragging rights. Today, dodgeball is banned or heavily modified in many schools due to safety concerns and bullying complaints. The wild, no-holds-barred version from the 80s. That's history. 8. Forcing left-handed kids to switch. In many 1980s classrooms, left-handedness was seen as a bad habit. Teachers routinely forced lefties to write with their right hands, sometimes smacking knuckles with a ruler or making kids redo assignments. Parents rarely objected. Many had endured the same treatment. Today, the idea of changing a child's dominant hand is unthinkable. Left-handed desks, scissors, and supplies are standard, and individuality is encouraged. But for many kids in the 80s, being a lefty meant constant correction. 9. Peanut butter was everywhere, no allergy warnings. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches were a lunchbox staple, and schools had no nut-free tables or allergy protocols. Kids swapped snacks freely, and no one thought twice about food allergies. If you were allergic, you had to fend for yourself. Today, peanuts and tree nuts are banned from many schools, and allergy awareness is a top concern. For 80s kids, though, PB&J was as common as breathing, and so were peanut butter cookies, crackers, and granola bars in the cafeteria. 10th. Report cards. Arrive by mail. No online grades. Back in the 80s, there was no app for checking grades. Report cards came home in a sealed envelope, and you had no idea what your grades were until your parents opened it, usually at the dinner table. There was no hiding a bad test score, no logging in to see your progress, and no chance to argue before the marks were final. Today's students have instant online access to every assignment and test result. But for 80s kids, the mailman was the messenger of academic doom or delight. 11th, cafeteria, food was unregulated junk. School lunch in the 1980s was pure comfort food, greasy pizza, tater tots, burgers, and piles of pudding. Nutrition rules didn't exist, and there were no calorie counts or healthy options. You could eat 2 slices of pizza, a chocolate milk, and call it a day. Today's cafeterias are held to federal nutrition standards, offering fruit, vegetables, and whole grains. But for a generation raised on square pizza and neon cheese, the memories of 80s cafeteria food are both legendary and a little terrifying. 12. Passing notes was the original texting. Before cell phones, kids had only one way to share secrets, passing folded notes under desks. These notes range from, "Do you like me?" to detailed gossip, and getting caught by the teacher could mean public embarrassment. Crafting the perfect fold was an art, and some notes were almost origami masterpieces. Today, texting has replaced note passing, and school policies on devices are strict, but nothing matches the suspense of seeing a note make it across a classroom undetected. 13th metal playgrounds on concrete. Playgrounds in the 1980s were made of metal, with tall slides, monkey bars, and jungle gyms set on hard-packed dirt, or even concrete. There were few, if any, safety standards, and scraped knees or broken arms were just part of recess. Today, playgrounds are built from plastic and foam, set over rubber mulch, and regularly inspected for hazards. For 80s kids, the thrill and risk of the metal playground was all part of growing up. 14th, no parent pickup lines, kids left freely. After the last bell, students simply walked out the door, no lines of cars, no sign-out procedures, and no staff checking IDs. Parents might wait in the parking lot, but just as often, kids made their own way home, on foot or by bike. Now, most schools require strict pickup protocols for safety. But the freedom to leave school grounds on your own, that was the norm for 80s kids. 15. Homemade science experiments. Science class in the 1980s sometimes meant experiments with real chemicals, substances that would never be allowed today. Home chemistry sets included potentially dangerous compounds, and classroom projects occasionally resulted in explosions, fires, or stinging fumes. Safety goggles were optional, and the word liability wasn't in anyone's vocabulary. Today's science experiments are tightly controlled, and dangerous substances are banned. But 80s kids learned science with a little extra adrenaline. 16. Toys like lawn, darts allowed on school grounds. Lawn darts, slingshots, and even BB guns sometimes made their way into schools, especially for show and tell or field day. No one thought twice about the risks. These toys caused injuries nationwide before being banned in the late 80s and early 90s. Now, even a foam dart can get you suspended, and schools have strict no-toy policies. The dangerous fun of lawn darts, that's ancient history. 17. Candy cigarettes, sold and used by kids. Candy cigarettes were marketed directly to children, letting them mimic adults with little sticks of sugar, sometimes with a puff of powder, smoke when you blew on them. They were sold at school fundraisers, in vending machines, and at the corner store. Today, anything resembling tobacco is banned from schools, and candy cigarettes are a relic of a less health-conscious era. 18. Buying cigarettes from vending machines. It wasn't just adults. Kids could buy cigarettes from vending machines in restaurants, bowling alleys, and even some schools. No ID required, no questions asked. As awareness of tobacco's dangers grew, vending machines were removed and age restrictions were strictly enforced. Now, this kind of access is unthinkable, and cigarette vending machines are nearly extinct. 19th, prank phone calls, using the school office phone. Prank calls were a classic pastime before caller ID. Kids used school phones to call random numbers, ask silly questions, or even order pizzas for teachers. Getting caught meant detention, but the thrill was irresistible. Today, every call is traceable, and making prank calls from school is a fast track to serious trouble. 20. Chickenpox parties, intentional exposure. When a kid in the neighborhood got chickenpox, parents would sometimes organize pox parties to ensure everyone caught it and got it over with. This included classmates and sometimes whole classes. Now, deliberate exposure to disease is illegal in most places, with vaccines making such parties a thing of the past. 21st. Unsupervised roaming after school. From the last bell until dinner, kids roamed neighborhoods, parks, and playgrounds without adult supervision. The only rule was to be home by the time the streetlights came on. Parents trusted kids to take care of themselves and each other. Today, free-range parenting is rare, and children are rarely out of sight for long. 22nd, riding in the back of pickup trucks on school trips. School field trips sometimes meant piling into the back of a pickup or open truck bed. No seatbelts, no helmets, just wind and laughter. It felt like an adventure, but safety was minimal. Now, strict transportation rules require seatbelts and adult supervision on every trip. 23rd, zero allergy awareness for class snacks. Cupcakes, brownies, and homemade cookies were staples of class parties, and parents sent treats without any concern for food allergies or ingredient lists. Kids with allergies were expected to fend for themselves. Today, allergy-free is the rule, and homemade snacks are often banned entirely. 24. Blacklists and public shaming of misbehaving kids. Teachers or principals sometimes kept lists of bad kids or even posted photos in the office or teacher's lounge as a warning. These blacklists were informal ways to shame students into better behavior. Now, privacy laws strictly protect student identities, and public shaming is forbidden. 25. Showing up unannounced at friends' homes. After school, kids regularly knocked on friends' doors or just walked in. No need for invitations or texts. Parents welcomed the chaos, and the line between families was often blurry. Today, most playdates are scheduled, and unannounced visits are rare. 26. Politically incorrect costumes at school events. School Halloween parties and plays sometimes featured costumes now seen as racist or sexist. Cultural stereotypes, blackface, or gender-mocking outfits. Back then, there was little awareness of the harm, but today such costumes are banned and widely condemned. 27. Using the school office phone for personal calls. If you forgot your lunch or needed a ride, you could call home from the school office. No limits, no monitoring, even for long-distance calls. Now, phone use is tightly controlled, and students are expected to have their own cell phones. 28th, visiting airplane cockpits on school trips. If your class took a field trip by plane, it was common for kids to visit the cockpit mid-flight, sometimes even sit in the pilot's chair. After September 11th, airline security ended this tradition, and cockpit visits are strictly off limits. 29. Homemade treats for school celebrations. Birthdays and holidays were celebrated with trays of homemade treats from parents. No store-bought requirements, no ingredient checks. Today, schools ban homemade snacks over safety concerns, and treats must be labeled and store-bought. 30. Minimal supervision on field trips. Field trips in the 1980s meant one or two chaperones for a busload of kids, who often wandered museums or parks unsupervised. Now, every group has assigned adults, strict head counts, and detailed permission slips. Safety comes first, but the wild freedom of 80s field trips is a memory. The 1980s may seem like another planet compared to today's world of safety regulations, health guidelines, and constant supervision. But for those who lived it, the memories are vivid. A little wild, sometimes risky, but undeniably formative. Which of these 30 banned school habits surprised you most? Drop your story in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more blasts from the past. Until next time, stay curious and buckle up.